I think we are live. My mic may be having issues again. I messed with it for the last hour and can't figure it out. Let me know if you guys can hear me and if it is unbearable. And if it is, there's nothing I can do about it at this point anyway. I even switched mics, moved my whole setup. So, yeah. Do I have everything going? I think we are live. Oh, I don't want you to have to hear me talk. We'll mute that. Okay, I actually have a new setup tonight. Kind of, well, not new setup. I moved stuff around. We'll see how well this goes. Okay, tonight I am working on Strathmore mixed media paper. This is a smaller board. I've actually not used this for colored pencil before, but it's kind of a nice thick texture. We'll give it a try. We'll see how it goes. Being that I'm not doing a project that I need completed, I'm just showing you how to layer and blend. This will work, and I'll get a better idea of whether or not it's something that I want to try for colored pencil in the future. So the links for everything I'm using are in the video description, so if you are interested, those are there. Let's see, I've got to pick my colors. So we're going to be doing this very out of focus background. I have a project that I'm going to be working on in, when is that? It's going to be in a few weeks. I'm starting it this weekend, but it won't go live for a few weeks. You'll be able to see progress photos on Instagram. But I'm going to be doing a blue and gold macaw with a background similar to this, but I'm going to airbrush my background, and I thought this would be handy because I could refer those of you who do not have an airbrush to this video so you can get that same background this way. Okay, now I need to pick my colors. So I'm going to start with polychromos. And where I was going with that story. If you go over to patreon.com/Lachri, the background, if you want to get a nice out of focus background that you can use in your own work, the one that I'm kind of basing this off of tonight, you can head over and download that for yourself. It's royalty free, so you can use that, and it's free to anybody. You don't have to be a member at Patreon or sign up for anything. You just head over there, and that is available for you to download. Okay, now I need pencils. I need something really pale blue. You know, I just placed a huge order at Dick Blick. It came today, and for some reason I didn't think to order pencils I'm low on. That was a genius move on my part. Let's see, some green and yellow colors. And again, if you want to see which photo I'm looking at that I'm kind of basing this off of, that is over there. Oh, look, I froze again. Let's see why that's frozen. Oh, good. Are you guys just sitting here watching me stare at this, trying to figure out what is going on? Oh, look, it isn't frozen. I just had to refresh. Well, that was odd. Okay, good. I'm glad it... Okay, this is really handy having chat right in front of my face to see that you guys said it wasn't frozen. Okay, back to picking colors then and not having to worry about that. Okay, you know, I'm actually fairly good with technology, and for some reason, everything to do with the live stream is just not so much. But if you are getting frozen, try refreshing because that definitely fixed it for me. And what other colors do I need? Probably something yellowy. Maybe I should have chosen these colors before I started tonight. Nice gold color. We'll go with these for now. Okay, so the colors I've pulled out, and I don't know, I'm sure I'll add to these, but the colors I've chosen to start off working with are my sky blue, light ultramarine, these are all polychromos, the May green, I can't even read these. I wish these were easier to read. Green, yellow, olive green, yellowish, earth green, yellowish, and possibly permanent green olive, but I think I won't need that one. We'll put that to the side. Okay, and so on my reference photo, a large portion of this is white. Not even going to put anything there. I'm going to let the white of the paper work for me. No reason to make more work for myself. And I should probably sharpen pencils. I just ordered some new sharpeners, so I can't wait for those to get here. I went to 2 art stores this week. One of the main things I needed were pencil sharpeners. Totally forgot both times. I had to order from Amazon when I got home. These are very dull, so they are not giving me the best results. And when I get started on here, the reason that I want my pencils to be pretty sharp is that I want to make sure that the tip of the pencil is going to get into all the little nooks and crannies of the paper. If my pencils are not sharp, I basically have a dull point that just catches the top of the paper. I'm going to get smoother results if my pencils are sharper. Now, I will be using, and I'll try to point out when I do that, just for time purposes tonight, I'm not going to be doing the best techniques. I'll be a little bit sloppier than I normally would, but it'll give you an idea of how to layer and blend these. So yours can look better than mine. Leela asks, do you ever find being an artist and working at home lonely? No, because I love to be at home and I like to be alone. So no, I've really not experienced that. I'm a weird person. So actually, I'm going to lightly sketch in where some of these circles go with this gold color. I don't need my circles to be exact to what my reference photo is. That doesn't matter at all to me. I just want a bunch of circles. They also don't need to be perfectly round. Barbara Lovelace says, as mad as she is at Prismacolor, she is obsessed with their sharpener. Is it the little one that's kind of like a lipstick tube looking almost, but larger? Because I have that one and it did not stay sharp long at all. I was not a huge fan. Okay, so I'm going to count, maybe a couple more. So we'll start in this corner. I just have this very, very soft blue. Okay, now I'm going to work in small little circles. Now, what you don't want to do is scribble like this with your pencils, and that's something that a lot of people want to do because it goes faster. It seems like it goes faster, but what actually ends up happening is you end up with a ton of pencil lines that you can't get rid of, which not going to work so well for you. So I want to work in smaller little circles, or ovals really. And I am not pushing very hard, but I am pushing hard enough that pigment is coming out on the paper. I've seen that a lot where students are so worried about not pushing hard that they don't push anywhere near hard enough, so almost no pigment comes out. It's great that you've got that much control of your hands, but if there's no pigment, that's not going to work for you either. Probably have to pull a brown color to mix in with this too. Actually, this guy will work. Now, one of the things that I like to do, especially on something like this that has a lot of white, I will intentionally go a little too dark so that I can then put white on top, which gives me an even softer end result, and I'll show you that later. But I will usually go a little bit darker than what I'm going to want my end to be. Barbara says that Prismacolor sharpener is an odd kind of triangular shape with 3 holes, different diameters. I may have to try that. I don't think I have that one. Kristen, that is a great question. She asks, what about using the side of the pencil to put down more color? That's where you're holding it this way. What happens is you're not getting you need the tip of the pencil to get into the tooth of the paper. If you hold it sideways, you're just catching the top of the paper and you end up with a very grainy, very rough look, which is okay if that's the look you want. It is not the look I want though. And this area will have more white. It'll be a pale, pale blue, but I can go ahead and put the blue a little bit darker to start with. Now, it looks when you watch me work like I'm just scribbling back and forth really quickly. I'm not. It's actually little circles and they're overlapping each other. Nardine asks if I'm going to be blending this with paint thinner. Yes, I am. I will be using Mona Lisa odorless mineral spirits, but you can also use Gamsol. They work exactly the same. Any odorless mineral spirit, it's going to pretty much be the same thing. So I'm pulling this color. This one is the light yellow ochre. And here my shapes they're kind of close to what my reference photo is. Not that close though. It's so one of those things where I'm not going to waste a lot of time making sure every circle is in the exact right spot because I don't think it matters. My whole goal is just creating a soft background. Rachel says, or asks, do you have the bokeh background already sketched out? I can't tell. Not really. I drew a few circles. It is not showing on the video, but there are some just a few circles so I can kind of see them, but not that much. Actually, I think it might be easy. Well, decisions. There are like 20 different ways to get to the same end, and that's why you guys will often hear me going, well, maybe I should do it this way. Maybe I should do it that way. I rarely do it exactly the same every time. I'm always looking for what is going to give me the best result and as easy as possible. So I'm constantly trying something new and in different orders, or different order of layering things, I should say. Funny Dude says, I noticed that you re-grip the pencil after you lay down some color. Why? It's habit. What happens if you keep turning your pencil, and I don't even realize I'm doing it. You'll keep turning your pencil, and you basically keep getting a sharper point. It starts to get dull, turn it, gets a sharper point. But you'll get to where you're doing that without even realizing. So what'll happen, my first layer is going to be very grainy, very gritty once I blend out. It's going to take several layers to get it to where I want it to look, or to make it look how I want it to. Paul says, your lighting is a little too bright and washing out the colors. Yeah, actually, that's kind of what they look like. That, at least, let me see on my screen. Move this up to 720. That's pretty much what it looks like. I'm not seeing it being washed out much there. I may be able to adjust the, let me see really quick before I go too far. I may be able to adjust this just a bit, but nope, that actually is better. Brightness and contrast. Let's try this. That doesn't even allow me to go auto. Nope, I think that's just what it needs. That's pretty close, actually. I really do have this. My first layers are very, very light. I'll start darkening up as I go, but this is a very pale, very light project. Maybe not quite as light as what you're seeing, but really close. Now normally I would put a piece of glassine under my hand to protect the paper so the oils of my skin don't touch it, which helps as far as archival qualities and all of that. This isn't a project that I care about, so I'm not even bothering with that. Wedding X Peach 97 says, when you did commissions, did you ever run into a super demanding customer? Yeah, I had one that ended up being very emotionally unstable, and she got really nasty, and I finally had to stop working with her. She had bought a lot of stuff over several years, or I'd say maybe a year and a half. Maybe I'm making it sound like it was that long. She has several of my paintings, and she started out really nice. And you know how you get those red flags where you're like, huh, that seems like a weird problem, but okay. And you're a nice person, we'll let it go. Well, it turned out she was actually very unstable and got extremely aggressive with me and nasty, and it was ridiculous. So yeah, that's really one of the worst I had. I did have another customer. He didn't do commissions. He was just a very unhappy person in general, and he was another one. So there's two people I've had to say I won't work with again and tell them not to contact me again. Well, I end up having to block them because people like that think that rules don't apply to them and they don't have to do what you're asked. So while I did tell them not to contact me again, in both cases, I also had to block them because they kept trying. Actually, one of them didn't continue to try as far as I know, but I blocked him so quick, I'm not sure. The lady, though, she kept trying to get a hold of me and send nasty messages. She was lovely. Rebecca wants to know if you can achieve this effect without using odorless mineral spirits. Yes, but it will take you forever. You would just layer on top of layer on top of layer until you get your look to be how you want. But you definitely can do it. So you can see I'm just kind of drawing in circles, starting to build where I want these shapes to go. Oh, this guy's got to come way down. And if you're doing a blurry background and you're going to have, let's say, tree trunks that it show as well, not just these were the leaves, but let's say part of the tree shows. It's very similar in the way that you lay down the color and you just let everything blend very, very softly. You don't want harsh edges and harsh lines. And if you guys want to ask questions for me to answer while I'm working, just leave comments in the little live chat. You will want to highlight my name though, so that I see it. If you just read a question, it looks to me like you're just chatting amongst yourselves. So if you have a question for me, make sure you highlight my name. Either Joseph or Valerie can show you how. Also, Joseph and Valerie are our two moderators. As usual, if you want, they've got channels here on YouTube. Valerie does these beautiful wood burnings. Joseph needs to get some more paintings done. We're gonna have to give him a hard time about that. But he does have some really cool paintings now that you can check out. So check out their channels. I have links to both of those in the video description. So my main concern at this point is just to keep everything soft and make sure that I've got enough pencil on the paper so that when I blend out with the odorless mineral spirits, it has something to blend. If I were to blend this right now, even just the blue, there's not enough pigment there, so not much would happen. Moonram says, have you played enough with Derwent watercolor pencils? How do they compare with Inktense? That's an they both have things I love about them, and both, I'm like, the way they lift with watercolor, I'm not great with them right now. And so I'm not at a place where I can really say much. I'm more comfortable with Inktense because they make sense to me. Like just the way that you can layer and it's permanent, and that is how my brain works, being that I started out as an acrylic painter. So I'm still getting used to the watercolored pencils, but there are some effects that they can get with soft backgrounds that I love. I'm really enjoying playing around with them. So far, I've just been doing quick sketches. I've not tried a full project because it's such a new medium, like something that's so just alien to me that I'm having to really spend some time practicing before I try a real project with those, because I cannot control them yet. They've got beautiful color pigment. I am having fun with them. Paul wants to know if I can add the color I am using to the description when I am done. Yes, you may have to remind me again in the comments, like once the video is over. I'll try to let you know. But I tend to just grab pencils, so I don't even know if I'll use all the ones in my hand, so it's hard for me to tell you what I use. I just don't overthink your colors. That's something that I see happen a lot. If you are new to colored pencil, or you're new to any medium, don't stress yourself out so much about the color. As long as your values, that's really what you want to watch, how light and dark your colors are. But as far as the actual, like, I need to make sure it's this yellow and not that yellow. It's yellow. It'll be fine. You'll figure it out as you go along, and you can adjust as needed. Now, I'm not saying that the color doesn't matter. I'm saying usually when people are stressing out about color, they're not at a stage in their art where that's the most important thing, or that's the thing that they're really having the most trouble with. But for some reason, that's what everyone wants to get hung up on. I recommend just play with the colors. Don't be afraid of them. Grab one. You know you need a yellow gold color. Grab a yellow gold color. If it's not the same one I'm using, it really doesn't matter. Nardine says, how do you get your colors to look more natural? I have a problem where my paint looks like I'm taking the color straight from the tube, even though I don't. You can tone them down if you understand how... the color wheel, that's the word I'm looking for, how the color wheel works. If you blend a color, like if you need your green is like a fluorescent bright green, switch, and there are greens that I hardly ever use because they're so green. Like this one is nearly a full pencil. That is not a green I use often. That's emerald green. There are a lot of those. My colors that are hardly used are these really bright, bold colors. The colors you see me use more often, that are used up quite a bit more, are going to be my colors that are more neutral and natural in the first place. But for painting, what I do is I mix the color in with its complementary color. So if my green is too bright, it feels too fluorescent, try adding a little bit of red. And that is its complementary color. Whatever color is opposite on the color wheel, that is going to neutralize it for you and give you a much more natural tone. If your yellow's too yellow, add a little bit of purple. Same way, purple's too like, wow, that's purple, add a teeny bit of yellow. And that can tone it down a lot for you. Brandy says, what is the purpose to have the mediators in your live videos? Because we get trolls in here that want to come in and just start swearing at people and saying every vulgar thing in the history of the world. And yeah, that is why. And I can't handle both that and the art at the same time. Susanna says, how much time would you say a colored pencil piece with odorless mineral spirit takes to make versus the powder blender? I would say powder blender saves me, I'd say it cuts it down by maybe 4 times. I'd probably spend 4 times as long on something without powder blender as what I do with. And I'm guesstimating that. The more I do with colored pencil, the faster I'm getting with it. So that number will probably change in time anyway. JPC 13 Art says, because of you, I feel like I need the watercolor pencils now, but I have no money. Well, keep playing with what you have for now. You don't have to have all of the supplies all at once, as much as that pains me to say. I didn't. I started with my graphite and acrylics were the only 2 mediums that I really could do. And slowly I added more. I actually went to an airbrush next. But then I got my oil paints. But it was one thing at a time. Don't feel like you need everything at once. I know it gets really exciting when you see something new and you want to try that too. It's not going to disappear. You'll be able to get it when you can afford it. So don't be too discouraged about not wanting to use what you already have because you want the new stuff. I know that's easy to say now, but I remember being exactly where you are, where it's like, oh, I want to try all of these things, but I don't have the money for them. They'll still be there when you're ready for them. Jacqueline says, can you possibly do a painting tutorial on how to create interesting backgrounds in oil paints? What do you consider interesting? I don't know how to answer that. Rachel says, I was wondering if you could ever consider drawing painting from a reference photo that a subscriber sent you. Not as a commission, but as a regular reference photo that you have rights to. I actually have. Christine, who is the most awesome person, she sends me reference photos all the time that she has allowed me to use. That's where my hummingbirds came from. And what else have I done? Yeah, there have been a few things, but I don't, I've had people that wanted me to draw a reference photo that they took just because they wanted me to teach them how to do that reference photo. That I don't do. It has to be something that I'm personally really interested in and want to draw myself. Rebecca says, sorry if you already mentioned this, but whoops, it just scrolled out of the way. But did you sketch out the circles before your, kind of. I sketched out the circles a little bit, really lightly with my yellow. I can still kind of see them. I know they're not showing on the screen. It was really light. I can barely see them sitting in front of it. Eric Draw says, I want to thank you for helping me get my craft more refined. Aw, that's awesome. Sam says, does baby oil work as good as odorless paint thinner? Because I have a ton of baby oil not in use. No, because it's not an art supply product. There are several problems with using baby oil. One is that it never really dries quite right. And when you do use it, you can't go on top of it right away like I can with odorless mineral spirits because these do dry fairly quickly. Not going to happen with baby oil. So, I mean, if you're using it for your last layer, fine. And even then, I would say only do it for crafts, not something you were serious about. I am a big fan of using things that have been tested specifically for and are made specifically for art, because things can go terribly wrong, and it sucks when you find that out after you've already sold something that the techniques you were using didn't hold up so well over time. But yeah, there are quite a few reasons I do not recommend baby oil. Gina says, do you have tips for portraits? More than I could possibly think of right now. My biggest tip would be make sure your initial line drawing is correct. Don't start shading until everything is drawn out exactly how it should be. If you start shading too early, then you realize your nose wasn't quite right, your eyes weren't right. That's going to be really hard, sometimes impossible to fix. So make sure that you get those drawn out right in the first place. I need another color. Oh, tea. I forgot I had this. Jacqueline says, similar to what you are doing now, or even a little bit more abstract. Huh? I think I missed the first part of that question. Lilo wants to know where the baby chicken is. He is still not allowed in the studio. I oil painted last night. And while I'm almost done with that paint, actually I did finish the painting, but my studio still, I don't want him near these paint fumes. I may be a little bit, my husband thinks I'm being ridiculous, I think, sometimes. I may be a little bit too paranoid, more so than I ever have with birds in the past, because I had birds in the past where I was like, okay, I haven't painted in 2 days, it's probably safe. And I didn't think anything of it. And now, I don't know why, I've gotten to where I am so paranoid, I'm not even going to remotely risk his little life because I wanted him in my studio with me. So I'm giving it at least a week for the studio to air out with no oil paint having been used before I'll bring him in here. And it's probably fine even today. I can't smell it anymore, but super paranoid. Tropper the Top says, where can I buy better painting materials that are not that expensive at? Any store names? Don't go to Michael's. I went there this week. I cannot believe how bad their prices are now. Now that they have their coupons all the time and they have their big 60% off on something or 30% off your entire purchase, it still costs more than regular price at other art supply stores. So anyway, I'm not a huge fan of Michael's at the moment, but I used to be. I just bought a bunch of stuff from dickblick.com, and they have great, them and Jerry's Artorama, I think, are the two that have some of the best prices. Sometimes Amazon has great prices too. The links, if you look at the links for what I bought here, those are all Amazon links, and some of those prices are cheaper than what art supply stores were. It just depends on what it is, so make sure you price check. And then, especially with Amazon, their prices change every 5 minutes, so what might be a good price today is terrible tomorrow, and then the other way around. But those are my favorites. Hobby Lobby is another one I'll go to. Their prices are usually decent. They're not going to be as cheap as going online through Dick Blick or Jerry's, but you can use your 40% coupon, and that makes it cheaper than going to Dick Blick. I found with Michael's, using the 40% coupon, it still wasn't as cheap as what I could do at Jerry's or Dick Blick. So just check your prices for sure before you go out shopping. Missed some questions there. Stephanie says, do you have a P.O. box we can send stuff to? I do. If you're signed up for my email newsletter, that P.O. box is included every week, what that number is. But please let me know, because I never check it. Let me know if you ever do decide to send something to me. Email me and tell me to watch out for it, because otherwise it'll probably get sent back to you, because I never go and check the P.O. box. I only have it so that I can send out my postcards and have my newsletters. So, yeah, just let me know if you do. But that is it's something in Coppell, and I don't remember what the P.O. box number is, but it's in my email newsletter. So when you sign up for that, it'll be on there. DB's artwork says, how do your studio helpers and baby chicken, or how are they doing? Love your live streams. Thanks. They're all doing great. They're all napping right now. Actually, the chicken is in his cage in his room, talking up a storm. He's not happy about being locked up right now. He wants to be out, but I can't have him in here, unfortunately. And studio assistant 1 and 2 are napping. Jacqueline says, can you please do a painting tutorial on how to create interesting backgrounds, I can talk, in oil paints, similar to what you're doing now, or maybe a little bit more abstract? I think our ideas of what would be interesting may be very different things, because everything that I've done, I consider to be interesting. I don't do much in the way of abstract, so I wouldn't be much help there, unfortunately. I do have some surreal stuff, though. Barbara Lovelace says, yes, a P.O. box. Oh, it just scrolled out of the way. Yes, a P.O. Where did it go? I'm missing a bunch of comments here. Scrolling. What if we wanted to send you presents? I like presents. Michelle says, we just bought our own baby chickens. They are parakeets and are super cute. I like parakeets. I just love little birds. Melba says, can you use Bob Ross oil medium like paint thinner? You can use his paint thinner, although I hate the smell of it, unless it's changed. The last time I smelled it, now granted that was 15 years ago, it was horrible, but it was extremely, extremely strong. The paint thinner would be fine. His mixing medium, or if I don't know what he uses as a medium, that would not work the same. Dennis says, what type of easel would you recommend to use? It depends on what you're going for. I like anything heavyweight for painting, but although I use it for drawing now too, I just put the board on it. This is an H-frame easel, and it weighs a fair amount. I like heavier weight things so that when I push on them, the easel doesn't slide backwards. So anything that's going to be a bit heavier. The tripod things I don't like as much. You can kind of see the one behind it. Well, not really. There's an easel behind me that's by Fredericks that I really like. That one's it's not actually a tripod. It's weird. It's a single stick. It's hard to explain. Maybe I'll do a review on it, because it's a really cool easel. I don't know if you can still get those. But that one is really heavyweight, and it stays in place really well. It actually is more compact than this one. But anything that's going to not move as you add pressure is what I would recommend. Brandy Mathis says, what type of bird do you have? I have budgies, and I am so very paranoid about them being around anything that could potentially harm them. I have a cockatiel. He's adorable, and I know what you mean. I actually went and bought cast iron pans so I could stop using my non-stick stuff, since that's toxic to birds. Anthony says, I've started getting my colored pencils out after your videos. I'm getting polychromos. What size would you recommend? Whatever the largest size you can afford, because no matter how many colors you get, you're going to wish you had more. I have the full set, and I still wish I had more colors. So that is pretty much always going to be the case. But the nice thing is, if you can't afford that many colors right off the bat, don't feel like you should wait or shouldn't get any, because you can mix what you have, start learning with what you get, what you can't afford to get now, and then add to them. They're available open stock online from, I know both Jerry's and Dick Blick have them. And so you can add to your collection slowly over time if that's easier for you. But whatever the largest set you can get is what I recommend. 74 Crisis, how many layers of pencil would be okay before becoming too much? Well, you don't really have a point where there's too much until the paper stops taking the pencil. Because I'm working in such a light hand, I am barely adding any pressure to this. I'm not damaging the tooth of the paper. And the type of paper you use will make a big difference too. But usually I would say I get about 20 layers, blending with odorless mineral spirits about 5 times. So every 3-4 layers I blend out with odorless mineral spirits, 5 layers sometimes. It just depends on what I'm doing. But it depends largely on the paper and how much pressure you're doing and if you're damaging the tooth of that paper as you work. Jacqueline's, whoops, I just scrolled past Jacqueline. I saw that she asked something. I need a better way to scroll through this. I may have to actually hook up a mouse to this. That would make my life way easier. Jacqueline says, can you possibly, okay, oh no, that was the same question. Paul says, it looks like you are doing the entire background like this. Can you still add a subject on top of that? Not really, not one that would show up well. If I wanted a subject in here, I would have just drawn something out. The purpose of this video is just to show you how I layer and blend these. Nardine says, do you have any advice for getting your colors right when painting a subject? It always ends up looking orange or yellow. Would I add purple? If you're too orange, sometimes a little bit of blue, that turns into a kind of a brownish gray. It depends on which blue and which orange, and there's so many factors there. Yeah, if you're too purple, then that would be, I'm sorry, too yellow, then yeah, purple. With too yellow or orange, try magenta or purple with both. But experiment. If you don't like the results you're getting with one, try another color. Don't be afraid of your colors. It's really important to start experimenting. I mean, I'm asked all the time, how do you know what color to use? Practice. I experimented until I found results that I liked. Rachel says, if someone signs up for your Patreon right now, would they still be allowed February perks, challenge photos, or would they have to wait till March? You would get everything right now, but you won't get your February, you'll get the February postcard. My postcards are always a month and a half later than when you signed up, which is normal, but you would still get the Patreon postcard as well if you signed it up for the $9 one. If you're not getting a postcard, then it doesn't matter. You get everything right now. But yes, you would still get everything. Hilda asked if I remember to record. I actually don't have to record this one because this isn't going to be a separate video. This isn't a project that I'm finishing on its own. So I'm going to start pushing a little bit harder, not much, just a little bit now that I have blocked in approximately where my color I want them to be. I'm going to overlap everything. Now, one of the things here, typically if I'm doing, let's say, a sky with clouds and such, a sunset, and I'm going to have yellow, I probably wouldn't go straight from yellow right up against the blue like I have here because you end up with green, and that is not a look that I like in my skies. Personal preference. I know some people will argue and say, oh, there's green in the clouds and I loved it. That's fine if you like it that way. I don't. So I avoid that. But here, I'm going to have green here anyway. This is actually trees, sky, and leaves showing through. So I don't really have to worry about that. I can go ahead and let my yellow and my blue touch. And even when I blend, I don't have to be super careful because it doesn't matter to me if it turns green. Now, like I mentioned earlier, if I don't come through and start getting more pigment, what I have won't show up, or it won't really blend out. The odorless mineral spirits can only do so much, and they can only do that if you've got pigment on the paper. It's really hard for me to talk and work, as it turns out. I am just falling all over my words. Funny Dude wants to know if I do any plein air painting, or plein air, yeah, I did read that right. Plein air painting. No, I don't. I don't like to work outside. I don't like bugs and heat and wind, and I love being in my studio where everything's where it's supposed to be. Everything's here. I don't have to worry about, oh my gosh, I forgot this or I forgot that. I like to go outside to take photos and then come into the studio and work on them. Not that there's anything wrong with plein air painting. I just don't like doing it myself. Mike and Jay says, for those of us who missed the first few minutes, can you please give us a brief synopsis of how you started this project? Are the circles random? are the colors red? I've got a reference photo over at patreon.com/Lachri. You can download that. It's free. You do not have to be a member at Patreon. You can just go ahead and get that photo over there. And that's kind of what I'm basing this off of, just as far as colors go. I did draw in some initial circles, but I'm not too worried. They're not exact. They're not even close to exact. I mean, other than it's mostly white here and then blue and some green. That's as exact as I got on this. All I really am doing is just basing it off that photo. So I want to capture the feel, but I don't need every last detail. That's unimportant to me. And I'm reworking this quite a bit. I'm going to go through that pretty quickly, getting a little sloppier, but I need to move through this so we can actually get some layering done on this tonight. Pencil's starting to get dull there. Stephanie says, what is your favorite kind of candy? I have some chocolate to offer. I'm trying not to eat candy. I'm trying to be healthy. I've been eating like crap lately and my pants don't fit so well anymore. So I have to start eating healthy and working out again. I've been making every excuse in the world as to why I don't have time. And I don't have time. I mean, that's been a big problem with not having time to work. I'm so busy making videos all the time. But I've decided that I have to force the time. So I have been walking again. And yeah, candy has to come to a stop for a while here. Do I always have to use final fixative for graphite and colored pencil drawings to keep them archival? I do spray my graphite just so they don't smudge like crazy if somebody were to touch it. I do not spray my colored pencil work unless I'm working with powder blender, in which case I need to, because that will smudge like crazy if you don't spray a final fixative on it. But for like this, I would not put it doesn't need a fixative. Let's see. Have I tried the Derwent Sharp Point Sharpener? Works great. I have not. I will have to ask them for one of those. They did send me, actually I want to show you guys because it's really cool. Hold on. Hopefully everything doesn't fall out. They sent me a pack of a sample to try out. I'm already dropping stuff. Oh, look, there's the sharpener. Look at all of these pencils. Probably easier to show you from back here. This way. A sample of a ton of their different pencils. Watercolored pencil. There's a really cool eraser. Actually, I really like that one. Water pen. How cool is this? Little water pens for working with Inktense and the watercolor pencils. There's a bunch of stuff. After trying a few of these, I definitely want to get a full set. I actually have one here. I have the Derwent Drawing Chinese White that you guys know I love, but I tried their Olive Earth. I don't know why I've never tried their other colors. I loved this. So I think that I'm going to like all the Derwent Drawing pencils probably for doing backgrounds like that. Actually, let's just use a little of him here. I'll be probably using this color on some other layers, but it's just so soft and I love this pencil. They don't have a lot of colors in the Derwent Drawing, but I think I'm going to need to get the full set. So I will have to contact them about that. Rachel says, what do you recommend doing if you start a piece to be halfway done and realize you're bored and uninterested in that piece you're doing and want to do a different one? I finish it. It happens all the time. I mean, this one's not terribly exciting to me, but I'm going to finish it either way. I make myself finish because, well, for me, YouTube is probably one of the best things that I ever did in order to get myself to produce more artwork, because it's really easy to be like, oh, I don't want to do this anymore, put it behind my easel and I'm going to work on something else. I've done that so many times and I wasn't finishing stuff. I wasn't accomplishing anything. So I had to start making myself like, nope, you are going to do this. There's no excuses here. Has to be done. Where did my reference photo go? Oh, did I click that off? Yes, I did. There it is. So I make myself. I think it's pretty normal to get to a point because, like, I had to finish that oil painting last night, but I didn't really want to work on it anymore because it was almost done. I'm already bored with it. I know how it's going to come out. It's like the surprise of how it'll look is already done. I know what it's going to look like at this point. I want to go work on the macaw that I've started. I came up with the layout, changed my background. I'm all ready to start on that one. And so I even cut the paper. I mean, I have it all ready. I did not want to finish that oil painting last night. I wanted to work on the macaw. So, and I think I do that on almost every piece. So in order for me to ever finish anything, I had to make myself finish what I was working on before I was allowed to start the next one. I have to set rules for myself because I'm really bad about things like that. Funny Dude says, I like the Albrechter, that I'm saying that wrong. They are color keyed to the polychromos and are more light fast than the Derwents. Those ones I believe are the permanent ones, aren't they? So it's not like traditional watercolor, I think, if those are the ones I'm thinking of, where they seem like they'd be more like the Inktense and that they would be permanent once dry. I may have to try those too. I'm going to play with the Derwent Derwent watercolor pencils for a while first and get a feel for those. That way when I try other brands, I can get a better idea of what I like about each one or don't like about each one. It's kind of hard when you try a bunch of new things all at the same time to remember what you liked about which one. So I'm taking this pencil and you can see I'm layering it over some of the blue, over some of the gold, over the green, just kind of going over everything. And I'm being much looser here, much messier. I've already got a lot of pigment in the paper. I'm just kind of tinting some of the color that I have. I think I'm going to call that okay for my first layer and then blend this out. And then we will start forming our circles a bit better from there. Okay. Haley said, what was your dream job when you were younger? I think I wanted to be a gymnast, which is hilarious because I'm like the clumsiest person in the history of the world. But maybe not the history of the world, but I'm pretty bad. That was like my goal forever. I saw the video Nadia Gomenich and I was like obsessed with her. I would watch that video nonstop, or movie nonstop when it was on TV. Yeah, that was what I wanted to be. I mean, how young do you want to go? That's probably my first memory of this is what I want to be when I grow up. Funny Dude said he doesn't think that the Albrecht Dürer, I can't say that, the Faber-Castell watercolor pencils aren't permanent, but that they don't lift as easily as the Derwents. Interesting. Okay, so what I'm doing now, I've got my brush. This one is a Low Cornell number 8. It is a filbert. I'm dipping the brush into my paint thinner and then drying it. Actually, you can see all the color that's on that. It was actually really dirty, so first I had to clean my brush. But I'm just taking most of that back off. I don't want my brush to be soaking wet. And I'm just going to go in little circles and smudge this together. This is just dissolving the pigment into the paper, so I don't have as much of the... Now, it will be grainy and gritty, but it won't be as grainy and gritty as it was. It's going to take me several layers to get this very soft. Topper the Top asks, what kind of strokes am I using? Which strokes are better, circle or straight? Almost never straight. Well, for the pencil, never straight. The pencil and the brush, really, I'm going in circles. If I wanted a straight line, if I was doing a building, I might work the pencil back and forth, or the brush back and forth like that. But other than that, I generally go in circles. That keeps it nice and soft. And I will use more paint thinner on my brush on my early layers. When I get into my final layers, I will not need hardly any paint thinner on the brush at all. If you use too much paint thinner on your later layers, you end up actually just lifting pigment off the paper. It does the opposite of what you want it to. So you can see I'm just smudging that in there. Gina wants tips for drawing eyes accurately. Practice or even trace. Even if your goal is to freehand, try tracing them a few times and then freehanding them. It'll help you to notice things that you didn't previously notice. And you said that you're already drawing it upside down and you're still having trouble. It's just going to take practice. I mean, my first portraits were horrible. They didn't even look like people. They were these weird alien, kind of some Tim Burton looking thing. And that was not my goal, so it wasn't as exciting as it sounds. It takes practice. It takes time. You don't necessarily notice, like you'll notice that things are off when you step back and go, okay, I know something's wrong, but I don't know what it is. You have to train yourself to be able to figure out what looks off in the drawing. And that really is going to come from practice. And if you're practicing and practicing and you just keep making the same mistakes, try tracing a few times. I've seen the best, like such great results from students who did take the time, go ahead and trace, and then freehand. The goal is not that you will ever be dependent on tracing. The goal is to get your brain to start seeing things that you weren't previously noticing. That it's a really good trick to help you to start noticing things. So far, I'm kind of liking this Strathmore mixed media paper, which is nice because being that it's Strathmore, it's not going to be a terribly expensive one to work on. My hope is to find something that's less expensive than the Fabriano, although apparently Fabriano's got all kinds of problems right now since they changed some of the stuff that they're doing. But my goal is to find something that's a little bit less expensive for people who are just getting started. With colored pencil, they don't want to buy the big sheets and have to cut them down, so something out of a pad like this would be nice. I'll have to do, if I like how this feels once I'm done with this project, if the color pigmentation, everything is okay, then I might go ahead and try a full project on, or get a bigger sheet and try a full thing and see how I like it then. I'll let you guys know. But so far, I'm not hating this. I do like, it's a thicker, it's almost like cardstock. I've always liked working on Bristol Vellum, the Strathmore's Bristol Vellum, just because I like how thick the paper was, but I don't like how I can't get the color pigmentation where I want it. So that might end up being the same thing here. I'm not sure. We'll find out in time. But it does blend really smoothly. It's going down really nice. Okay, so we've got to let that dry completely before we go on to the next layer. The reason is if I start working my pencils onto it, first, the pencils aren't going to stick that well. Not a whole lot's going to happen. But the bigger issue is that you can damage the tooth of the paper if you're working your pencil onto wet paper. Funny Dude says, have you tried any other, maybe less expensive hot-pressed watercolored paper? No, I did use the Canson Inktense. I liked that. I don't know if it'll be like my favorite by any means, but it wasn't a bad paper. There were things that I really liked about that. I've used the Stonehenge is a little bit less expensive. That's not really a watercolor paper or labeled as such, but that one actually I liked pretty well for a colored pencil. Gabrielle asks if I always draw in this position because of my neck or only for the live streams. It's for my neck and my back. It's the whole thing's all messed up. But yeah, I have to always be in this position or I end up with major problems. 74 Cry says, have you done anything with glow-in-the-dark paint? I have not, but I kind of want to try it because it looks fun. I don't think it'd be something that I would try to make serious artwork that I wanted to display in a gallery or anything like that, but it seems like it'd be kind of a fun project to do. Sarah wants to know if I will ever do a live stream of Inktense. Absolutely. I just don't have one planned right now, but I definitely will. Kristen K says, I think I actually have this paper. Does the paper have a bit of tooth to it? Yeah, it kind of does. A little, but not bad. It's not, I don't know how to describe it, and it's hard. I can't really show you. It has more than I thought I would like. My drawing for how not to draw hair. This is apparently what paper I used on this. I got this one in the Smart Art box. I have a lot of different pads of paper that they've sent in different projects. One side has a little bit more tooth. The other side is more smooth. I think I'm working on the one with more tooth. I can't tell. They're pretty close. The lighting's not really, I'm not able to tell. We'll just leave it at that instead of me trying to explain why I can't tell, because I don't know. Dennis says, is the Strathmore drawing paper good for colored pencil? So far, I'm liking it. Well, see, it depends. Oh, wait, no, you said Strathmore drawing, not this one. Strathmore drawing, I believe I've got over here. It's a lighter weight. I want to say it's like 65 pounds or right around there. It's a lightweight paper, if I remember correctly. It's not I like the tooth of the paper. I just don't like how lightweight it is, so I don't work on it anymore. But I do like the tooth on that, so it's decent to learn on if nothing else. And it's not that it's not archival or anything like that. I just prefer heavier weight paper, so I'm less likely to damage it. Phyllis says, I want to do a project including my son's rescue husky with the northern lights. Would you do the lights like sunlight through the ocean? What medium are you working on? I will come back to that question, but I need to know what medium. I'm going to, actually, we'll just go ahead and assume you mean acrylic, because I think that's probably where you're going. If you're, kind of, if I was going to airbrush it, I would do the darks first, get my sky where I wanted, and then airbrush light with white, and then airbrush color on top of that to get it how I want. Another option would be to paint wet into wet, where I would put the light color that I wanted. I'd probably just go with white to keep it easy. White, where I want the shape of the northern lights, and then the dark around it, and use my mop brush to blend and create the streaks where I want. When it dries, glaze the color I want over it. Those are the two methods I would probably go with. Ron Roberts wants to know what kind of tea I like to drink. This one is green tea. I don't love a lot of the spicier teas. I don't like lemon flavored tea. That is weird to me. But green tea is probably my favorite. And mango. What do we have next? We have our drawing says, have you ever tried the Mitsubishi pencil sharpener? I have not. But I think I might go on a bit of a spending spree. Well, that's what I've done all weekend is buy art supplies. I've gone to a lot. I bought a lot. It's bad. I have a problem. But anyway, 21 new tubes of oil paint tells you something. But I think that I'm going to go on another spending spree and get a whole bunch of different types of sharpeners and use them over time and give a bit of a review after I've tried a few of them. So if you guys want to leave, don't leave it in this comment, leave it in the video comment. I think when the video is over, you'll be able to. Different sharpeners you think I should try? Let me know, because I will probably go buy them. And I'm still waiting for this to dry a little bit. It's almost there. It doesn't take that long. And you can see a little bit of a stain of oil around where on the white paper. So I need to make sure if I don't want that line to be there. Sometimes it will dry completely. Sometimes, let me grab my paper. Sometimes on some paper, it seems like the oil stains, and I know that this one, I got it all over it earlier, and I can't see it at all, so it is going to dry all the way on this. Stonehenge is one where sometimes it seems like it stains, and it never dries all the way. So, and I don't know why that, it does dry, it doesn't look like it's dry. You can see that oil stain, but at least on the Fawn Stonehenge, I was always able to tell a difference. But this one looks like where I spilled it all over when I did my little test to see if I wanted to try this paper, it looks like it is going to dry completely. But whenever I'm using colored paper, and I'm going to leave some of the colors showing through, I try not to get the paint thinner all over that section. I keep the paint thinner over the colored pencils. So I just want to keep that clean as I work. Haley wants to know if I'm ever going to do a live stream with the chicken. I won't do it for the whole stream because he's rambunctious. He is just full of it all the time and gets very, very bored and has to get into all the things. So I thought I'd be able to bring his perch in here because he's got a nice perch. He could sit and hang out with us. He won't stay there. He'll just keep jumping. I have a hard time getting him to stay still for more than like 20 minutes at a time. Sometimes he wants to sit on my shoulder, but then he doesn't want to just be there. He wants to climb up and down my arm and get into what I'm working on, which is fine unless I'm working. So I don't know that we'll do a full stream with him, but sometimes I can bring him in at the end of the stream when I haven't been painting. Leela says I should do an art haul video. You know, that's not a bad idea. I had bought enough that's still... Yeah, I may do one of those with all the stuff I got enough this week that I could do that. You guys will make fun of me at how much I spent, though. I clearly have a problem. Claudia Sketches says, have you tried gouache? What is your view on it considering you love acrylics but hate watercolor? I actually like gouache the few times I've tried it. It's the thing that I like so much about it is it photographs so well because it's completely flat. So it was great. Like that's why illustrators liked it so much. Something that you're going to need to photograph or scan for print. It is wonderful for that. So yeah, it's not one that I'm going to run out and buy a bunch of anytime soon. I say that now. You never know what tomorrow will hold. But yeah, it was actually nice to work on. There were things I liked about it. Hiram R says, do you have any advice for overcoming art insecurities? I'd say paint and draw more. Let's see. I think the more you practice and the more your own skill level starts going up, you're going to become more secure in what you're doing anyway. And I think that you need to get to a point where no matter what you create, you're proud of it. I think that helps a lot for me. I mean, when I was younger, when I painted, I was always, and my mom helped. I mean, my parents are wonderful. So my mom was always so encouraging of everything that I did that I believed I was amazing even when I wasn't. But I was always so excited to go show, and I think if you have that support system where you have somebody that you can go show and they're going to encourage you, that helps. Some people are going to be insecure no matter how awesome they are. But the more you practice, I think that helps because you get to a point where you know that you're able to produce something that looks how you wanted it to. Why is my nose itching so bad tonight? So that is, yeah, I'd say just draw and paint more and see if you can find a support system like our art group. Over on Facebook, if you go look up Lachri art group, Lachri artist group, what is it? Valerie or Dead? I don't remember what we have it listed as. But if you go there, you've got people who are completely supportive and they're going to encourage you. And I think that can help when you've got a group of people who really want to help you to grow, see you grow, encourage you along the way. I think that can definitely help with insecurities. So there are a few things. I think it's going to vary from person to person, what helps and what doesn't help. But for me, having my mom, having somebody that I always wanted to go show, I couldn't wait to show her what I did, and then she'd act like it was the best thing she ever saw, even though I think looking back, they were pretty terrible. That helped. Scrolling back up. Rebecca says, have you ever tried pastel pencils? I don't like pastels because I hate how they feel on my hands. So while they create beautiful work, not my choice. Let's see. Sarah says, how are you liking the new sketchbook you got? And I will show you guys 1 second. So I've been wanting to finish a sketchbook, fill it start to front forever. And I'm really, really bad because I never do. I say I'm going to, and then I don't. And then I'll get all excited because Smart Art Box will send me something with cool different pencils and a sketchbook. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to fill this one up. And I never get around to it. So when I was at the store, I was looking for some watercolor paper to try with my, my words. They're hard. The Derwent watercolor pencils. So I came across this book, which I just like how it looked. It's got all of this fun handmade watercolor paper. It's kind of like painting on a rock, but it's fun. So I'm like super excited to paint more stuff on it. It's not something where I would try to do something super detailed or make, the most amazing art ever. I just like the book and wanted to play with it. So it absorbs, like the watercolor doesn't flow like it does on other paper. So you're not getting as much of the watercolor look as what I can get on some other papers. And I kind of like the watercolor look. For me, that's the point of using watercolor over Inktense. So that's, although Inktense can get a similar look. But anyway. The color, by the way, that I'm using right now, this one is hard to read. Burnt Ochre 10%. And it's just basically a cream color. It's by Luminance. But yeah, that one, I don't know. I just like how the book looks so much that I'm having a blast, and I can't wait because tomorrow I'll be able to get 1, maybe 2 new sketches filled up in it. So I've never been excited to work in a sketchbook before that one. So even though the paper isn't the best to work on, for some reason, I just think it's a blast. I'm a crazy person. Don't try to understand me. Jacqueline says, I just graduated from art school and they insist we sharpen pencils using a blade. What's your opinion on using a blade? I still have all my fingers. I don't use a blade. That's proof that I do not use a blade. I try to avoid things that cut things off. So I never really understood the point. I know, and it's funny because for some reason artists who use a blade get so elitist about it, like it's the only way you can sharpen a pencil. It makes no sense to me. My pencils, I don't have a problem sharpening a pencil and a pencil sharpener. So I'm not saying there's not benefits to doing it, but there's also benefits to using a pencil sharpener. So I say sharpen it however you want. It's great to learn. I do think that it's good to know how to do it both ways, and then you can better decide which fits you and your ways and what you're safe using better. It is not safe for me to handle sharp objects. So that is not going to be something you'll ever see me doing. But it's always funny when people do the whole, no, this is the only way to do it. I've seen the argument with sharpening pencils with a blade, and it's like, why? Pencil sharpeners were invented for a reason. If I have to mow the lawn, I'm going to use a lawnmower, not a pair of scissors. So I don't understand why we can't use a thing that makes things easier on us. But that's just me. Topper Than Top says, why do people dislike oils more than acrylic, and how do oils feel like, because I have never tried them before? I wouldn't say people dislike oils over, people are afraid of oils, I think is what it is. Or like when new artists get started, when I would have new students come to class and they weren't sure what medium they wanted to work in. I had so many students who were hesitant. They didn't want oils because they thought oils were going to be harder than acrylics. No, oils are easier for me to teach than acrylics because they don't dry so fast. Acrylics dry so fast, it's really frustrating for a lot of people to get the hang of. So I think for me, what I saw with students, it wasn't that they disliked them, it's that they were afraid of them because when they had tried them in the past, they kept getting mud. People will overblend. That is, oil, acrylic, doesn't matter. Everyone wants to overblend all the things. They feel like it looks good if I blended, so that must mean I need to blend it for another 5 minutes and it'll look even better, which it's not how it works. You create mud. But learning when to stop and let the paint dry is really the only problem that students ever had. And once they figured that out, everything was fine. So as far as students go, that was something that I watched. But I don't know, I've actually seen the opposite, where buyers seem to think something being an oil painting means it's fancier and worth more money. So, which is just perceived value. It doesn't mean that it's actually worth more money. It just depends on who's buying and how much they want to spend on that thing. But yeah, I can't tell you why some people would dislike that other than what I've seen with students. And that and the odor. I will say oil paint, they do have a definite odor, whereas the acrylics are going to be non-toxic. So for a lot of people, that's reason enough that they don't want to deal with oils. So I'm going to take some of the greens, but these darker greens, I'm not going to put them everywhere. They're just going to be in a few spots as I start building some of the shapes. And I am pushing a little bit harder on the pencil than I was earlier. Now my pattern will not have nearly as many circles as what the reference photo has, just because that would take us forever. We're going to go through a little bit quicker because I really just want you guys to see how to blend and layer these and how to get a general feel. You can add more circles just fine using these same techniques if that's what you want. You can see how I'm just starting to build these shapes, create circles even, and it's not like, well, the whole circle has to be solid blue. That you definitely don't want. You're going to have variation just the way that the light is coming through all of these circles. You'll have lots of colors within each of them. So don't try to make them all perfectly shaded in, otherwise they look like circles and you don't actually look like it's just the effect of the light coming through the trees and the blurriness of the way the camera takes the shot. You can see how I just kind of overlap lightly from one, like where I'm adding the green here, I just lightly layer that into the blue. Now onto the second layer of this, or the second time through with having blended with the odorless mineral spirits. Well, first time's been blended, but I'm working up to the second time. I will say I'm still liking this paper. Not as much as my Fabriano Artistico, or at least the old one. I'm kind of hesitant. I just got a new pack of the Fabriano, and I've heard horrible things about things they've changed, so it'll be interesting to see if I have any problems with my techniques with it. But if I got a new one, I don't know. Packaging looks new. Or different than my old one. But anyway, this is not bad though. And notice how I'm not just going solid, like, okay, green's in this area, so this whole section needs to be solid green. It's little bits here and there that overlap from one into the next. I'm definitely going to want my blue to have more pigment, so we'll start I'm going to push a little bit harder than what I was doing before. Still working in ovals. If I were trying to make something as perfectly smooth as possible, I would go a little bit slower than what I'm doing now. So I do recommend, don't feel like you have to move this fast. One of the nice things about colored pencil is that there is no rush. I mean, take all the time you need. Another thing I want to point out is I see a lot of times where newer artists will leave it like this. That's the whole thing. Look at what'll happen though as I keep layering, what a difference it'll make in smoothing everything out and getting the color pigmentation better. I do want to say too, I know this video, it looks a little bit smoother than what my actual work does. This has a little bit more gritty, grainy look than what you guys are seeing. So if you're doing this and you're like, I've done the first layer and mine's not as smooth, the camera is what's causing that, just the lighting and everything. Gina says, any tips for using Photoshop to check my work? Just learn it. Use Photoshop. Learn. I don't do Photoshop lessons, but there are a lot of lessons on YouTube where people will teach you how to use that. But even just putting your image, a photo of your work side by side with your reference photo in Photoshop and looking at them right next to each other, that really makes it easy for you to get an idea of how accurate everything is, or maybe where you want to hype up contrast or color saturation or anything like that. Sarah says, this may be a strange question, but how do you balance off life with family doing art all the time? My family's in California, so that is part of the help. I live in Texas, so I don't see them that often. But I talk to my mom every day on the phone, though. She calls me on her lunch break. So we talk for about 10, 15 minutes every day. And then sometimes longer. We'll talk a couple times if there's more interesting stuff to chat about. And my husband, he is perfectly happy entertaining himself playing video games. So it's like I'll be in here drawing and being perfectly content here. He's playing his video games and we're happy. It just works for us. We're weird. But we don't have to be in the room with each other all the time. We're not real clingy like that. We both like our personal time and we can both entertain ourselves. So, but I do have a hard time because I do so much with coming up with any time off. So while it does work, I am trying to create a little bit more time for myself. So I've been working on a schedule. I was actually working on that earlier today, changing it. I'm trying to make it so that I'll have 3 half days off on his, because he has 3 days off a week. Trying to make it so that his schedule and mine allow us to have those days off. I'll still probably paint or draw at night, but at least in the day we could go to the zoo and go do more stuff. So I'm working on that. Rachel wants to know how I feel about Masters Touch canvases. Those are the canvases that made me swear off everything except for Frederick's. Those are generic. They are hit or miss. They're okay for learning. They paint okay. I would not recommend doing it if it's something you sell. They're very inconsistent. There are times where the paint wouldn't even stick to the canvas, like they got oil or something on it and acrylics would just keep pulling off. It would just bubble up like if I had rubbed oil on it first. It was really bad. I've had a few problems. The stretcher bars, yeah, no, I am not a fan of Masters Touch canvas. Now, their extra smooth canvases are okay for learning. But again, I would say just for learning. I wouldn't do it for stuff that you're going to sell. Sherry says, do you end up using a lot of powder blender for each piece? No, hardly any. I go through the spray more than anything else and the touch-up texture. But the powder blender itself, no, it lasts freaking forever. That stuff, a little bit, goes a very, very, very long way. Sarah says, it kind of sounds like my relationship with my husband. I just worry I spend too much time in my studio. Well, for us, it works. I mean, we've been married it'll be 17 years in September. So it's clearly working for us. I think it just depends on the couple. But for us, it works very, very well. It's probably why we're still married. We don't spend so much time together that we feel the need to kill each other. Emily says, this is how I get inspired. I look up pictures of what I want to paint online. Yeah, if you go to like Pixabay or anywhere that has royalty-free reference photos, that is such a great way to get inspired or find inspiration. Morgfile, Pixabay. Actually, I don't like the way Morgfile's site was last time I went. So I don't use them so often anymore. But Pixabay I really liked. Graphic Stock I've got a few from that I really liked. Topper Than Top says, do you make sculptures out of clay? I do not. I did one with Smart Art Box and it was a lot of fun. But it's not something I really have time to do often enough to get good at it. So I just don't. Hiram says, I heard from someone that reference photos give students a bad habit of becoming copy machines. What are your thoughts on this? My thoughts are that comes from artists who only like abstract or impressionism and things like that. I think it's absolutely ridiculous. I think anybody who tries to tell people that their preferred method of creating art is the wrong way, that kind of lets you know that person is not someone to talk, you really need to take advice from. They're too close-minded. Art doesn't have rules. If reference photos are something you like the macaw that I'm doing next week, for example, that is a photo I will copy most of, but not all of, because there were things in that shot. And people will say, well, why not just you've already got the photo. What's the point? Because I'm going to change things, because there are things that I don't like in that photo that I'm going to improve on in my piece to make for a stronger overall design. And I'm not going to get that kind of detail unless I use a reference photo. If there's no reference photo, there's no way I'm going to get that kind of detail. So the artists who usually say that prefer abstract impressionism, things that are not super detailed. But any artist who I respect, who I like their work and want my work to look similar, they all use reference photos, every single one of them. Or a live model if you've got that available, but most of us do not. And so, no, I think that attitude, that elitist, my way's the right way, your right way's the wrong way to create art, those people they've got problems. And it's probably not you and your art, it's them and their issues with their own art. Samelia asks, I want to start oil painting. Would you recommend buying a predetermined set of colors or picking and choosing from colors based on the subject matter I tend to make? I would say it depends. How many colors do you want to go? I usually would start students off with the preset. Winsor Newton has a set. They're tinier tubes, but with oil paint it goes a long way. It's not like a tiny tube of acrylic. That really is going to last you a lot in oil. But what I usually did is I'd have the student get that set first at Hobby Lobby and then use a 40% coupon on it. So the set was like $44, and then you use that 40% coupon. So it doesn't cost you that much to get a lot. I mean, there are like 10 colors in there. So there's a great start, and then add additional colors that you would want on top of that. That's normally how most students started. Gina Shepard says, I am new to gesso. I noticed that there's a scale on the bottle. Can you explain? I don't know what you're talking. I'm not sure what you're looking at. So no, I can't. I'm sorry. Topper Than Top says, who are some of your favorite artists? John By is one of my favorites. And is it Michael something? I don't know. I follow him on Instagram. Paints tigers and waters and waves. Or water. I guess I don't need to pluralize that. But Jason Morgan, I've always been a huge fan of Jason Morgan's work. I so fangirled out the first time I talked to him. Well, I kept it to myself. I tried to act like a cool person, but it was like, oh my gosh, Jason Morgan's talking to me. Huge fan of his. I don't know, I have a lot. I'm going to pull some of the darker blue into this now. This one is the light ultramarine, just in a few spots. My goal for this layer is really just to get more pigment on the paper, so like a lot more pigment on the paper, so I can come through with the white to create the circles. But the white's not going to show up if I don't have enough pigment on here. So I need to get this a lot darker than what I've got right now. Remember, you don't want to push very hard, because if you push too hard too early on, you will damage the tooth of the paper, and that is going to limit how many layers you can get on here. Sarah says, or asks, have you ever used a water brush for Inktense other than water-soluble mediums? Have you ever used a water brush? I just got, Derwent sent me, I have like 4 of them here right now that I've been playing with. I am loving them. They're pretty cool. Like, they wouldn't replace paintbrushes for me, but they have some really cool techniques that I'm definitely enjoying. This is that Derwent drawing in the olive. I'm going to be interested to see how well this blends out. I had to check because it almost feels like pastels. It's going on so smooth. I wonder why they don't have more colors in the Derwent drawing, because the 2 now that I've tried are amazing. Paul F says, is there any budget colored pencils you would recommend to a beginner? Also, who's your favorite singer? Amberlin is my favorite band. I'm not big on individual singers, but as a band, I love Amberlin, although they're no longer together. Budget colored pencils. I think it depends on what your goals are. I played around with the Marco Refine colored pencils, and I will be playing more with those. I'm going to be doing a review on those. They're great for color. If I was doing coloring books, that would be my go-to pencil, because they are so inexpensive. And they are so inexpensive that it actually makes me think they're not that bad. I would start kids off with those mainly. For adults, they're cheap enough you can play with them to get an idea if you even like holding a pencil to try to create art. But you're not going to get as many layers. They're not the worst pencils, and I have to say I was surprisingly impressed with them considering the cost. They're not light fast. They actually say in the box, great light resistance or something like that, but there's no light. They are not actually light fast. From anything that I could find in any test that anyone has done, their light fast ratings are terrible, so you wouldn't want to sell work with that, but just to play with. Those ones weren't, I expected to really dislike them, and I didn't, so that was kind of a surprise. So that may be one that you want to try out. But most of the bargain pencils are just not great. Jacob says, I just started watching. Are these watercolor pencils? No, these are regular oil and wax-based pencils. Stephanie says, on behalf of all of us, thanks for taking the time to talk to us and answer our questions. Aw, you're welcome. Thanks for watching. Leela wants to know what my favorite TV shows are. I realize this has nothing to do with art. I've been watching The Magicians, and I liked Westworld. I'm looking forward to the next season of that one. Mostly comic books, like S.H.I.E.L.D. I like that show. I like things that are not realistic, basically. Game of Thrones, of course. Okay, we're going to need to pull a bit more of this color into this, and then I'm going to go ahead and blend this layer out. I'm just kind of layering this all over the place. And now at this point, now that I've gotten a general idea of where my lights and darks are going, I'm not using my reference photo so much. Moonram wants to know what my advice is for doing bokeh with Inktense. Look up the video, either the red panda, and I did the red panda, and I did it in the octopus in a tree. I have 2 videos showing you how to do, or how I did that. And basically, I found that it was best, or the way that I like to do it best, is get my base layer down, my dark greens in both those cases. Where did I put my paintbrush? I'm missing a brush. Hold on. Can't talk and look at the same time, apparently. There it is. But for those, I did my darker greens how I wanted, and then I took my white Inktense, the block, made my ink mixture with that, with a paintbrush and water, and then painted circles. I basically took the brush and made circles like this, just kind of twist it, made all of the circles the way I wanted, which is not the color that I want, but that gave me the shapes that I wanted. I let it dry completely, and then I glazed another color over it where I wanted, and that gave me really good results. Funny Dude says, what are your feelings on water-soluble oils? I don't like them. I don't like how they work. I prefer regular oils. And when I made a video on that answering someone's question, it was funny how many people got mad at me for it. Oh, but this and that, and these are the reasons why I think they're great. You're allowed to like them, and I'm allowed not to like them. So, you know. But no, I'm not a fan of water-soluble oils. I definitely really like regular oils. Anthony says, this may sound dumb, but what exactly are your art vlogs? I thought you just meant vlogging, but that doesn't seem to be the case. It's just what would be a blog. I mean, all a vlog is a video blog. You can be talking about anything. You can be teaching someone how to do something. It could be you rambling about the art products that you just bought. It's anything. It's just basically a blog, but in video form. And so mine can be anything art related. Topper Than Top says, did you attend any art schools or anything? Because I feel like that you are not called a true artist if you did not attend art school. No, I did not. I taught myself, and most artists that I really respect also taught themselves. That doesn't mean that going to art school is bad. It just means that it's not the only path to becoming a professional artist. I knew a girl I had worked at one place with, and her big thing was constantly pointing out to everybody that she had a degree in art. But the funny thing is, she wasn't doing anything art related. I know a lot of artists with art degrees who don't actually sell their work, don't work in the art field, don't do anything. So having a degree in art doesn't necessarily mean that you're instantly an artist. It actually means very, very little in the art world. There are some jobs teaching-wise that do require a degree in art, but besides that, that would be like teaching at colleges or government type, I can't talk. Schools like public schools. That's the word I'm looking for. But no, other than that, you don't have to have a degree in art. You don't have to go to school for art. It's kind of a silly misconception. Okay, so we need to let that dry. Yeah, most successful artists were self-taught. Very, very few went to school for art. Some did, and there's nothing wrong with that, but it's not necessary. It may have been for them, and it was the right choice for them, but it also isn't the only choice. I guess that's what I'm trying to say. Okay, have to let that dry for a few minutes, so I'll answer some questions if you guys want while we wait for that. Yeah, Leela says that she's getting a degree in marketing. She's noticed a lot of artists are really bad at marketing. I'm hoping this degree will help. Now, see, that's the way to go. Learn business and marketing, because that seems to be one of the major problems that artists have. Bigelow Fine Arts says, I'm doing a botanical art on white backgrounds, and I find that when I blend, I get a little carryover onto the background, and I'm using Fabriano. Is this normal? If you mean with the odorless mineral spirits, yes, that is normal. You just have to be really, really careful when you blend. I would switch to a smaller brush, something like that. That's actually a damaged one. That's not the best. Here we go. Something like this, where you've got a little bit more control, so when you're going along those edges, you can keep it really clean and use far, far less mineral spirits, like hardly any on your brush when you are blending, when you're trying to keep your background white like that. You have to be really careful. Moon Ram says, have I watched Bollywood movies? No, I have not. I don't have time for movies much. I mean, I have a few things, but not a lot. But I do like the clothes they wear. They're so pretty. Let's see. We have you any idea what the newly announced Derwent Polycolor are? Are they just better colored pencils by Derwent? I want to know that too. I've not heard anything. I haven't asked them about it, but I'm really interested in those. So I'm sure when they come out, I bet you I can get them to give me some to try out and let you guys know how they are. But I'm really, really anxious to try those. I really, really want more that are kind of like the Derwent drawing, because right now I'm liking these. Stephanie says, I know you are the owner of 2 dogs, but what do you think about cats? Never again. Cats don't fit well in my home because I have too much stuff for them to knock over and break. And I used to have cats and I adored them, but I won't get more. And I don't know if it's just from the fibromyalgia or what, it is a side effect, but I'm really, really sensitive to smells. And even when I use the litter crystals, which were one of the best, I swear I can always smell kitty litter, and it just, no. And dogs going through the litter box, and it wasn't fun times. So no, I won't, I don't see myself doing cats again. My husband is not a cat person. We both generally prefer dogs, and so if I'm going to have another little being in my home, I'd rather it be a dog or a chicken. I love how cats look, though. I think they're so gorgeous. Just the way they move, and they're hilarious. They just don't, there's too much stuff for them to get in my home and knock stuff down. Sapphire says, are you planning to do any more drawings with the Faber-Castell water-soluble graphite? Yes, it was one of those things, those and graphite tint, the Derwent graphite tint. Those are 2 that I really want to do very soon, that it hit me the other day, or a week ago or whatever, that I haven't used them in forever. Like I used them both once, I loved them, and then I didn't touch them again. I'm like, why is that? I liked them. I liked both those products. So yes, I will definitely be doing more of those, hopefully soon. Oops, I just scrolled past a question. Moonrun wants to know if I've tried urban sketching ballpoint art. No, I have not. Anthony wants to know my husband's profession. He is what is he? Manager is not the right word. Something kind of like a manager at an elevator company. So it's like 911 for elevator. So when you get stuck in an elevator and you push the call button, help save me, it's probably going to his work. Don't call to talk to him. He won't be pleased. Let's see. He actually was a machinist, but when we moved to Texas, he couldn't get work back in that field again. And so that's what he does now, which is nice because I think it's way less stressful for him. And I love his hours right now. He just switched them and they're working out really well for me. Sarah says, I have 3 cats, so I totally get the whole knocking things down. But I would not trade them for the world. Yeah, I mean, I loved my cats. I adored them. But I think that dogs are just a better fit for me. And time-wise, I'd rather give all my attention to the dogs than try to split it between too many pets. But they're so cute. Every once in a while, Cornish Rex, is that Cornish Rex? Am I saying that right? And there's one other breed that I really like. And every once in a while, I'll see a photo. I'm like, oh, I want one. No more pets. Stormy Rain says, have you used any fixatives on wax pencils such as Zest It to stop wax bloom? Use any fixatives? I have not used Zest It at all myself. Let's see. In general, using odorless mineral spirits does help with a wax bloom. I just read the rest of the question awkwardly. Sorry about that. But the odorless mineral spirits will lift some of that wax bloom, so it absolutely helps. But Prismacolors are a very waxy pencil. That's just the nature of them. You can spray a fixative over them. Prismacolor makes one that is supposed to keep it from happening again. And I haven't used it, but I've heard good things about it. But because I always use odorless mineral spirits, mine don't bloom up. I don't really have a wax bloom problem too badly with mine, other than getting to the point where it won't take more layers. So I'm going to darken this up again. My paper's probably not quite dry all the way, but we're running low time-wise, and I need to get to the circle part, the last section, so we'll go quickly on here. I'm going to be a little bit messier just to get some color in here. So here I'm not being as soft as I should. So my lines are not going to be as soft as your guys's can be if you work a little bit slower in smaller circle or ovals. And you'll see me as I work, I keep squinting. That's just to see if like, okay, do I need this area lighter or darker? So as I work, just as a regular thing that I do is to squint at the project. It makes it easy to notice if you've got something that's standing out in a way that it shouldn't. Topper wants to know my favorite color. I think most people in the group, I bet, could answer that for you. I'm kind of obsessed with teal. Very much so. Like, everything in my apartment is teal. So you can see I'm going through really quick. I'm being messy. Do the small ovals here too. Your work will look much softer. I'm just trying to quickly get some pigment on here so we can get to the next stage. But your work will look much better, much softer to work in those smaller circles like we started out with. And I'm still not pushing very hard. Carlos says my favorite color is shiny. That's actually a good answer. Nolan says, do you have a schedule for your live art class? If you mean for the live streams, no, just that right now they're on Wednesdays. I've been considering the wisdom of moving them to Thursdays. I don't know. Right now they're Wednesdays, though. They'll probably stay Wednesday. But I don't know what they're going to be from week to week. Next week, I'm pretty sure it's going to be colored pencil again. I'm going to be working on that macaw. And that will be blended with the odorless mineral spirits as well. Now here, I'm taking this green and I'm going over the light and the dark green. Again, just getting that pigment in there. And let's pull a bit more gold. Stephanie says, if you decide to leave the house, what's your favorite place to go? Cinema Park, Zoo. I do like the zoo, but the zoo's kind of work for me because I'm there getting reference photos for Patreon. So it's kind of like, I don't know, there's that not stress, that's not the right word, but pressure to get as many good photos as I can to share with everyone for the Patreon rewards. I love the zoo though, but I don't really like going to the movies because there's always someone annoying kicking chairs or kids that are too young to be at the movies yet, or, you know, they're screaming and running up and down the wall thing, which doesn't frustrate me, the kids. It frustrates me that the parents can't make better decisions. I like to go out to dinner. Once a week, my husband and I we have a favorite restaurant that we go to for dinner here in Grapevine. That's one of my favorite things. It's nice because it's a time that we actually really sit and talk to each other and just chat, and we're not in a rush, and it's just a really good time. Like that's probably my favorite thing to do when I leave the house. Although last year I got to go kayaking, and I'm really, really excited for the weather. I'd say for the weather there to warm up, but it's probably been warm enough to go lately. I really want to go kayaking again, but I want to bring my husband this time. I went with my friend Greg last time, and my husband's never been, so I think that will be a lot of fun. Can you tell I don't leave the house that often? Because when you ask me, I'm like, I don't even know how to answer that. I don't know. Anthony says, you probably already mentioned it, but was there a reason you switched Wednesday and Tuesday videos? Just because of the collaboration this week. Leonardo's videos go live on Tuesdays, so I just switched those days this week, but it'll be back to normal next week. Topper than art wants to, or Topper than Top wants to know how much money I spend on art every month. You know, it depends because like this last weekend, I probably spent over $500, and then I'll go for 2 months where I hardly spend anything. So it really depends. I just happened to realize this week that I was out of almost every oil color paint I had, and I've been like trying to squeeze the last bits out of tubes, and I'm like, why am I doing this? Buy new paints. So I spent a lot more than I typically do. And then I got the fancy watercolor art book, and I got a few things new too. I got some new airbrush paints that I'm going to be able to review. I'll be doing that if they work on my sample. I'll be using that for that macaw. I got some Holbein airbrush colors. So, but yeah, I want to say it was probably a little bit more than 500. It was probably closer to 600 that I spent this last weekend. But that's a lot. That's not normal for me at all. That was just, oh my gosh, I'm out of everything. Order all the things. Gina wants to know the temperature right here. Oh, you guys in New Hampshire are expecting a storm. Here it is, I don't know what it is right now. It was like 70 earlier today. I think it's a lot colder right now, but we've had a lot of days in the 70s and 80s the last week or two. And then we'll drop back down to 50, and then we'll be back up to 75. It's been a really weird, unusual winter. I love it. I am not a fan of the cold, so this is the thing that's so weird is I'm out in sweats and a tank top walking the dogs, but all the trees are still winter trees, so it's really warm, but the trees have no leaves yet. It's the oddest like phenomenon to me. For some reason, somebody is talking about, who said that? Someone wants to dress up like a raccoon? Did I read that wrong? You guys are being weird again. Jackie Smith said in Alberta, Canada, it was negative 25 degrees Celsius. Oh, no. But it was funny. Being from Southern California, I'd never really experienced anything much colder than 50 degrees. And when it hit 50 or even 55, I thought I was dying. It was like the worst thing in the world to me. Like I really thought I was freezing to death. I'm going to blame part of that on the fibromyalgia and say I'm not that big of a pansy. But I probably am just that big of a pansy. Anyway, I went to Chicago with some friends, and they had a big ice storm. We all met up there, and they were having a big ice storm at the time, and it was in the 20s, I believe. And it was the weirdest thing to me. I think it got down to the 20s, but most of the time there I was in the 30s. And it was so weird to me because I'd never experienced anything that cold before. Even in Southern California, when you go up to the mountains, when I went, it was never that cold. So it was a very, very weird thing to feel cold that cold. It was hard to... Being from Southern California, it was hard to believe that anything ever got that cold. Like, how do people live in this? Turns out you get used to it. Okay, so I'm going to blend this out again. I don't need nearly as much paint thinner, and you can see I can go through this much quicker than I did on the previous layers as well. The first layers, I spend a little bit more time blending out, but once you get in a little bit more, when you've got more pigment on the paper, it goes much quicker. Yeah, I'm kind of hoping that our winter is mostly done. I wanted it to snow a little. It snowed once here this year. I wanted it to snow a little bit so I could go out on the trail and get photos of the trail with the snow on it. I thought would be really pretty for reference photos for Patreon. But that didn't happen. It snowed, but not enough to really get pretty photos with. So I wouldn't mind one day of snow, but I'm really mostly just hoping that we kind of move into spring sooner than usual, because I love that weather. I love having my windows open. Carla says, how often do you need to buy more Faber-Castell colored pencils? Not often, actually. They last a pretty long time. I mean, even when I work with the powder blender where I'm working on larger pieces, they still last a fairly long time. I don't have many that are super, super short. The white and the black I do go through more often. But even that, they last a long time. I used to go through my Prismacolors way faster than anything I've ever done with the Faber-Castells. Faber-Castell lasts much, much longer. Now, I would recommend, if I were finishing a project, this is still a little bit grainy and gritty to me, I would recommend doing another 2 times through. Layer, blend out, layer, blend out. But we're going to move on to the next section just for time reasons. But it would basically be a rinse and repeat of what we've already done. I would recommend add more of this same layering process on top of it. Paul wants to know, for anyone who uses polychromos, where do you buy individual pencils without pain in an arm and a leg? I get mine through Dick Blick. I don't know where you guys get yours from, but Dick Blick or Jerry's are my two places. Yeah. Nancy says, spring in Texas, shortest spring in history. Yeah, we don't get much in the way of spring or fall here. But I'm really hoping that it hits us a little bit earlier and stays nice this year. It was really interesting to go to the zoo. We went, was it last week or the week before, to get the Patreon photos. And if you guys are on Patreon and you have not already, make sure you go download your reference photos. But when we went this time, I was surprised at how much more active the animals were. Normally when we'd gone before, it was always 100 degrees out or more. And yeah, the animals don't move so much when it's that hot. But it was really cool to watch how active everybody was. And it was just nice to walk around. This needs to dry for a minute before I move on. Stephanie says, any plans for Valentine's Day yet? No, and it's the night my husband and I think it falls in the night we'd normally go to dinner anyway, so we'll probably do that. Maybe I should actually make reservations at that restaurant just in case. But we were trying to think of what we want gifts to get for each other, and neither one of us can think of anything right now. My husband did good last year. He got me a necklace that has a QR code that when you scan it, it says, love this wife, because that's what I always tell him, is that he loves this wife. So he did good. That was a good gift. Topper Than Top says, what kind of canvases are better, bigger or smaller to paint? If you're just getting started, I recommend go a little bit small, 8 by 10, right around there, 11 by 14. I've seen a lot where students get in their head that they have this huge wall they want this big painting for. That's very overwhelming, and it's hard to get a grip of the paints and understand how they move at that point. Working a little bit smaller, do a few pieces smaller before you jump into those big ones would be what I would recommend. But I don't like teeny tiny either, because it has its own set of difficulties. Nolan says, have you ever bought from Amazon? Polychromos 120 count tin is $167. Seems to be the cheapest I can find. That is cheap. That is a really good price. Shahir wants to know why I use the brush and why it's important. I'm using it with odorless mineral spirits. There is a little bit, I'm using Mona Lisa odorless mineral spirits. Gamsol works exactly the same, but it's dissolving the pigment of the pencil into the paper. So that is what mine is for. You can kind of tell it's still wet. It's a little bit cooler. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and jump ahead, and I would let this dry a little bit longer if you're working on your project. But I'm going to start putting circles in here. Some are going to be small and some are going to be little. I don't need them all to be filled in because I don't want polka dots. Some of these are going to go over the shapes that I already have, and some will not. Some will just be random circles. Again, I would recommend get a few more layers before you jump to this section. Although if you jump ahead and then realize, oh, I want mine to be smoother, you can always go back and do that. It's not like this has to be the last thing you do. I'm filling that in just a bit there. So I am kind of picking out circles that are there that I can work with. And this is why I needed my blue to be a little bit darker than what my reference photo looks like, so that I can go on top of it and make these circles over the blue, which will soften it out and lighten them up. And I'm just working that pencil in circles and then filling it in. And this is the Derwent Drawing Chinese White that I'm using right now. This one, it's nice because it's a thicker lead. It's a very soft lead, and it gives you really, really smooth, very opaque results. Claudia wants to know if there's a reason I'm using the Derwent Drawing Chinese White over the Luminance White. Because this one is a little bit more opaque and it's a little bit softer because I'm filling in this larger area. I like the results I get better with this. If I was doing smaller detail, then I'm going to switch over to my Luminance White. It's a little bit of a harder lead, but this I need very, very soft. And so the Derwent Drawing Chinese White is just perfect for it. And I can go over some of these with the paint thinner too. I don't have to leave it at just like that. You can see you can get this nice soft look. Lauren wants to know how well this effect would cover up red crayon. My nephew just colored all over one of my drawings. I cannot get it off the white background. Add another, let's say it was red and you have flowers there, add another flower. You're just going to have to try to hide it, but you may not cover it all the way. If it was something that I was going to sell and it was a regular red crayon, I probably wouldn't sell it. I would start over. Finish it if you want for yourself, but light, fast, archival qualities, depending on that pencil. You could kind of work it into the design, but you can try to lift it by taking tape, like maybe a piece of masking tape, or not masking tape, sorry, Scotch tape, that's the word, and put it on the crayon and try to lift it, especially if you take the area where the line was with the crayon, push on that with another pencil to try to really get that to pull off. You can try that. You can try an ink eraser, but the best you're going to do is lighten it. It's never going to go away completely. So after lifting as much as possible, you can try covering it with something else, but it's not going to cover completely. Like putting white on it, no, this wouldn't hide it. Rachel says, would you ever complete a drawing with only a few 3 to 4 random colors? That way you could interpret a reference photo into something completely different. I have done that on different paintings, not with colored pencil, but I think that is a very cool way to work. I do like the very limited color palettes. Really bright area I'm going to put here, so I'm pushing a little bit harder, really let that pencil show up, and then I'll create circles around that. And it's really important that your circles overlap and you have different shapes. Do not make them all the same or they'll just be polka dots. Hiram says, do you have any art horror stories, like pieces that you've made that might have been lost or ruined by others? You can't see it. The TV that's behind me, above that, I have a painting that I did of my violin. And it was actually for the CD or one of the songs that went with one of my last band's, one of those songs that was built around that. Anyway, bigger painting. It's a very pretty one. I really like how it came out. And I put a hole through it. I was doing something with the shelves behind me and it knocked something that knocked something else that knocked something. It was this whole chain reaction and it fell down and whatever it hit, it put a hole right. And that was a thick canvas. So it hit hard. So there's a hole in that one. That was my own stupid fault. Ruined by other people? I can't think of any. Not that I know of, anyway. Most of the things that have been ruined have been my own fault. Putting holes in canvas seemed to be the main thing that I've done. I've done it 3 times. One was on something I hadn't even started yet, but that was before I started keeping lots of canvases on hand all the time. This canvas hoarding that you're seeing behind me, this started back, it was my very first video actually on YouTube. Or not my first video was me teaching Studio Assistant number 1 how to wave. But my first video, painting video, was of Studio Assistant number 1. Oh, that's fitting. I never saw the connection there. But anyway, I did a painting of her. And I came home, I taught my class that night. And I came home and was all excited to start this painting. I had the layout, the design, everything. That is what I was doing that night. I was so excited. Get home, I had to do, what was I doing? I don't even remember. The stretcher bar on the back was warped and I didn't know that when I bought it. So I was trying to remove, I'm like, okay, the stretcher bar doesn't really need to be here. I'll try to pull it out. And I ended up putting a hole right through the canvas. And it was at the top of the canvas, like kind of up in the middle top, but I can't sell that painting. And I've had people want to buy it, and it's like, I can't, because it's not worth, I mean, it's damaged, but I like it enough, I'm not selling it for cheaper, because it was a lot of work. But I went ahead and painted on the damaged canvas anyway, even though I hadn't started it. A smart person would have said, okay, I'll go buy a canvas tomorrow. But I really wanted to paint that night, and that's the only canvas I had. So ever since then, I always have spare canvases, always. But that was back in 2012 that I think that happened, 2012, 2011. So now I just work canvases. You can see I'm just layering these. They're not all, some are filled in, some are not. Gabriella says, can I use normal workable fixative over the powder blender to build up layers, or is it a special fixative? It is a special fixative. It is definitely not the same stuff. I don't know what would happen if you tried the regular one, but the regular ones aren't really meant for, even though some of them are labeled for colored pencil, they're not designed around colored pencil, and so there are some issues there. So you can see how I'm kind of building up shapes too to make sure that it's not just circles in here. I'm going to pull the white right up into that blue so that I get a soft transition between that and the white of the paper. And then I can just build from there. Once I get to this stage, this is where I typically would decide where I wanted things to be lighter or darker. So I can take those pencils and work around the circles that I now have formed. And I can add more as I want to. Funny Dude wants to know if I'm going to do another pouring medium video. I get to live very vicariously through you. Absolutely. I loved that Liquitex pouring medium. That was, the paintings hanging on the wall that were done with that are so much more striking. Just the gloss on them. I love the result I got with those. So yes, I will definitely be doing that. Don't leave me. Lucille says, do you have any watercolor with brush? I'm addicted to watercolor as an illustration right now. Like regular watercolors? No, I do not even own any. I used to. I don't even remember what brand I had. Nothing good, I'm sure. I never used them often enough to bother spending much money to do better work with them. You can see the more layers you get in, everything just starts to smooth out. More and more layers. If you do not like the grainy, gritty look like me, I just don't enjoy that effect at all. It just needs more layers. Just keep layering. As long as you haven't pushed too hard. If you push very hard with the pencil too early on, you are going to damage the tooth of the paper, and that will limit how many layers you can do. But as I'm doing here, I'm not pushing very hard. I'm able to get a ton of layers on here. And if I wanted this to be perfect, let's say I was going to do a project and make this a complete background and have it be absolutely as perfect as I can get it, I would probably spend twice as long as what you've seen me work on this tonight. So I would definitely put a lot more layers. Sarah wants to know what the first piece of art I ever sold. Did I celebrate? I must not have, because I don't remember what it was. It was probably something from Angel's Galleria in the Pomona Arts Colony. That was the first gallery I ever displayed my work in. I don't think they're there anymore. It was a really cool gallery too. They had really pretty smelling candles. But anyway, I used to display my work. I bet that was one of the first places. I know I displayed stuff at a coffee shop, but I don't think anything sold there. I used to display my work. Like, I would go anywhere possible where I could display my work. Even if it didn't sell, it didn't matter. I was going to get the experience, and I was going to be able to put that on my resume. Which is funny, because I don't remember what half of them are, so they're not on my resume. But that was like, I mean, I wanted to experience everything. And so I put it in a lot of places. But that was probably, I would say it was around 1998, 99 would probably be one of the first times I sold a piece. And I probably put that money right back into more art supplies. Tougher Than Art wants to know if I like to go to theme parks or amusement parks. I don't like roller coasters, so I used to love going to Disneyland when I lived in California, because I could just walk. They had the Roller coasters were for wimps like me. Like Pirates of the Caribbean, it's not actually a roller coaster. Or there are a few that went a little fast, but not fast enough to really be scary. I could handle those, but like I've never been to Six Flags Magic Mountain because, oh gosh, no, that is not happening. I'm afraid of heights. I don't like to go fast. My back couldn't handle it now, so it doesn't really matter. But I like the atmosphere of Disneyland. I used to love Disneyland. That was actually when my husband and I were dating. We had season passes there. We used to just go and walk around and get lunch, and that was before I knew I had celiac disease, so I could eat at all the fun restaurants there. But yeah, we used to go do that a lot when we were dating. That was like one of our main, that and the beach were the two places we used to go to all the time. Sarah H says, are there any good liquid blenders that are either natural or non-toxic? I'm really sensitive. So here's the thing. The natural ones are the ones I've had problems with. I'm sensitive too. I get headaches. Oh my gosh, everything. I look at like the side of the wall wrong. There's a headache. I mean, it's ridiculous. But anyway, I've never had a hard time with the Mona Lisa odorless mineral spirits or Gamsol. I tried Smart Art Box a while back, had an oil painting one that came with a natural lavender paint thinner to try. And I thought, okay, cool, I'll try this. No, it tried to make my throat, like my chest felt all tight. My throat felt like it was going to close off. It was horrible. Absolutely horrible. And yeah, no, just because something is natural or non-toxic, it does not mean that it is not an irritant. So I just want to throw that out there. Don't just think that because something says natural or non-toxic that it won't cause problems. If you're sensitive, be very careful no matter what you try. But even given how sensitive I am, I have never had a problem with odorless mineral spirits. I've had a problem with terpenoid. I've had a problem with turpentine. A lot of even the one that, was it terpenoid said it was odorless? One of those, and it really caused a headache. Gina wants to know if galleries have contacted me since they became popular on YouTube. I've been displaying stuff in the Frisco City Hall, and they'll contact, actually, I need to submit something. If I don't submit stuff, when they have their next, they switch out artwork, they usually will contact me asking me if I'm going to submit. But they've been great. But no, I actually haven't. I haven't even tried, honestly. I haven't contacted. Oh, no, I guess that's not true. I've had galleries in other countries want me to send my stuff to them. I just ignore those. That seems really shady. Yeah, but Frisco City Hall's been great. They actually bought one of my pieces from me last year to keep for their permanent display. So that was pretty cool. That I was actually really excited about because a city hall wanting your artwork, that's just awesome. So see how I'm just kind of building and adding more to it where I want? And you can be as dark or as light as you want on here. The main goal is you want your background to be somewhat out of focus. That way, in something like this, when you're working on this, you don't want real harsh lines, real harsh details, because this is going to allow your subject, if I were to paint something really in focus up front, it's going to give you a very three-dimensional look and having this soft. But again, do more layers than what you're going to see me do tonight. And I could keep building and building and building until I get this. We'll go a little bit over tonight. Just so I can show you a little bit better how it will look as I layer. But you're just going to keep layering until you get your color saturation where you want. And I'm kind of liking this paper. I have to say, this is giving me decent results for how much pigment I have on here right now. I will probably try a full piece or a full project on this paper in the future. I think it's a little bit closer to, it seems to be getting better pigmentation than Bristol Vellum, but not quite, it's not quite as much as what I would get with Fabriano Artistico. But until I do a full piece where I'm really trying to worry about color matching and such, I won't really know. I'd say it's worth picking up a pack and seeing if it works for you, though. David Rook says, thoughts on painting with a twist and places like that? Good ways to introduce people into making art or kind of a waste of time? Here's the thing. if I wasn't a professional artist, I would totally, that'd be like a full date night that I would love to go to with my husband. But being that I'm an artist, that's not something that I would really find. I wouldn't have fun just going and slapping paint on the canvas the way those are. I used to teach at one of those, not painting with a twist. I taught at Let's Art Party, which was owned by, if you guys I'm sure have heard of Dave and Buster's. His wife, Lacey Corley, she owned Let's Art Party. So it's kind of cool because I got to meet Buster. But nice people, very, very nice people. But anyway, they did that one, and they wanted professional, like actual artists. Painting with a twist will let anybody teach there. And that's not to say that because you teach there, you're not awesome. You may be totally awesome. But most of the teachers in my area who were teaching there at the time that I was teaching at Let's Art Party, which was about 5 years ago, their teachers didn't know how to paint themselves. And so the students were getting a little bit frustrated, and it was giving a bad reputation to Let's Art Party because people assumed that the experience was going to be the same at this one as it was in the next. Actually, some of the teachers in some of the local painting with a twist, they would get drunk with the students while they were teaching and walk around barefooted. Their kid was running around because they didn't have a baby. It was bad. The teacher's kid was running around. It was very, very unprofessional, and there were a lot of complaints from people who were not happy with the experience. So it was yeah, there were some definite problems with some of those. Now, sometimes you'll get a teacher in one of those that makes it a fun class, and it's great. It's not somewhere where people go to really learn how to paint. They go to have drinks with their friends and do something. Like my husband and I, or well, he doesn't really want to, but I want to go to it. There's, now that his schedule changed, I'll actually be able to. They have something similar, but you go and make plant arrangements with succulents, like little cactus and stuff, and sanded vase things. I don't know. I like plants. So, but you go and it's done at a bar, so you can have drinks while you're making these projects. And it's just a fun thing to go and relax and have drinks while you're painting. So in that sense, yes, it's great. It's fun. It's not where people go to learn art, though. I don't think that it gives a bad, hurts anything for somebody who some people do decide they want to become artists after doing something like that. But I think that was fairly uncommon. Most of the people who came to those classes were there to go have fun on one night with their friends. Sherry wants to know what the best paper to use with the powder blender. My favorite right now is Fisher 400. I got mine from, where did I go? ProArtPanels.com. And I got mine that was already mounted, which makes it so nice. I've got a ton of it back here that I ordered a bunch of. And then they had a sale and I ordered a bunch more. I'm set for like the next 2 years, but probably longer. But that's my favorite. Then my next favorite would be what did I use? UArt 500 was decent. I like the Fisher 400 better, but UArt 500 was pretty good. And the next favorite under that would be gessoed paper. And the reason that I list gessoed paper underneath the other two is I actually have to gesso it myself, and I don't want to do the extra work. I just want to grab a piece of paper and start my art project. But taking my airbrush and gessoing the paper was another option, but probably my least favorite because I don't want to spend the time doing that, honestly. So I'm going to take this color and kind of outline a little bit heavier some of these circles. This is with that cream color. Or I think this was the, Burnt Ochre 10% with Illuminance. Creating a bit more of a defined circle there, and I'm going to blend this out with a paint thinner again. Dennis wants to know, he says, I know this is kind of non-art related, but if you had one wish, what would it be? Oh, that's a hard one. I think it depends on when you ask me. I think my one wish would be to be healthier to where I felt like I had energy all the time. People think I have energy because I talk fast, but just because I talk fast. It has nothing to do with energy. But every once in a while, usually it's been like after I had NyQuil or something, after having a cold, I'll sleep enough that night, like really sleep, that I wake up and actually feel like a human being, and it's amazing. It's only happened a handful of times in my life, and I tried taking NyQuil when I wasn't sick or on a regular, but it didn't help. It was just like randomly one time I'll get a good night, like I'll feel like I sleep at night. I'm just not resting, or I don't know. I'm broken, but I'm always so tired. So my one wish, I think, would be to be a normal person and wake up with energy. That would be amazing. That's a weird wish, I know. So I can take this darker color too and line a few of these. See how I'm just kind of lightly shading that out so that I've got a better defined circle there. I'm going to let those circles overlap each other. Melissa says, normal people don't have energy either. Yeah, but right now, like my normal is, I feel like I took a sedative. And I didn't know that that wasn't a normal feeling until those few times where I woke up and felt like it sucks to wake up in the morning. I feel worse when I wake up than when I went to sleep. It's really, really hard for me to get up. So I would like that not to be the case. I know that's not normal. Oh, somebody mentioned pizza. I'm jealous. That does not fall under my current healthy eating requirements. Miss you, pizza. Leela says, how do you push through when you don't wake up energetic? I lay in bed for like a half an hour to an hour before I can kind of, my eyes burn. I sleep with my eyes open. I'm a freak. Not on purpose. I don't intentionally sleep with my eyes open. But since I was a baby, for some reason, I go to sleep with my eyes closed. But sometime during the night, they open up, and so they're very dried out on top of everything else. So my eyes burn. It takes me a while before I can really open them all the way before they kind of get back to normal. I've tried eye drops. Those just burn. That doesn't really help much. But I will usually lay and like kind of read emails and stuff. And the bad part is I'll read people's emails or texts that come through, but I'm too groggy to respond right then. So I'll look at the email, decide if it's something like super important, you know, somebody's dying and I need to check into this. If not, then I'm like, okay, I'll get back to them later. And I forget. I'm the worst friend. I'm so bad about that. I get to, once I start working, I forget that I had a text. I read emails all the time and text, and I don't even remember reading them because I was asleep. But I can see that the message has been marked as read. I need to stop doing that. But I will lay there for about a half hour to an hour trying to wake up. And then I just make myself. I mean, I have stuff that needs to be done, and I have kind of a limit or a time frame on when I need to get it done. So I just force myself to get up and do it. Nate wants to know how I was introduced to drawing and painting. Crayons and coloring books is how I started. And I remember my grandmother always had construction paper, and so I could draw my own stuff too. And I used to cut out little things and make little animals and houses for them with my construction paper. But I would also draw and color on those. And some kind of cream, almost like newsprint paper. I don't know what that was, but I do remember drawing on that. So I was probably about 4 or 5 when I started really enjoying that. Eric Druss says, drink more water during the day, at least half a gallon. You're hilarious. I drink over a gallon a day. So yeah, that's not a problem of mine. I go through water like crazy. I'm always thirsty. So I go through a lot of water. It's kind of funny. I just took that off my Fitbit. One of the things, drink more water and track your water. I'm like, I need to drink less water. I do not have a problem with that. And I'm not over exaggerating with a gallon a day. I literally buy a gallon of water and either walk around with that, and because I'll drink the whole thing in a day. I've also got water bottles everywhere that I'm always drinking. Gina says, ginger tea is great for inflammation and energy. Dandelion is great for the immune and energy. I've drank both. I hate them both, and neither made me feel any better. So that's not happening again. I hate ginger tea. Tea shouldn't taste like soup broth. I am not a fan. But I like ginger cookies. Weird. Probably just because they're not healthy. I think I'm going to go ahead and blend this out now that I have a bit more pigment on there. Now I want much less paint thinner on my brush this time because I do have so much pigment on the paper. If I put too much, it's going to lift up. Yeah, this paper, I think it's going to be very similar to Bristol Vellum, and it's not going to get the same amount of pigment. So I don't want to retract that you should try it. I think you should, but I can definitely see where this is not getting nearly the amount of pigment that it should be at that stage. So a decent paper, but probably wouldn't be my favorite. I think I'll still do a full project so that I can review it, but the pigment is pulling off the paper more than it's going into it like I would want it to. So, and that's very, very similar to what Bristol Vellum does. And not my, for my techniques, not my favorite. It's not horrible, but it definitely is not going to be a go-to paper for me. But again, not terrible. Yeah, see, it's kind of, I'm more pulling paper or pigment off, I think, at this point than having it should set into the paper if it's a decent paper. Or I shouldn't say decent. It's not that it's a bad paper. I think this would be great for graphite. But for colored pencil with the odorless mineral spirits, I would like to see this soaking in more than setting on top. So I don't think that I would be able to at any point get this to be quite as smooth as I can on Stonehenge or Fabriano. And I'm going to let that dry and go over it a little bit more with the Derwent Drawing Chinese White, and then we will call it done. Gina says she mixes ginger and cinnamon and tons of local honey so that my system staves off all local allergens. You know, I used to do that, and it worked really good for allergies until last year. And I drink a lot of local honey, or in my green tea, and it wasn't helping at all. So I had to back off the honey just because I needed to figure out where all these extra calories were coming from. But last year's allergies were so horrible. I did not, something was, actually I know what it was. It was the oak trees. The honey did not help with oak trees, and that was my main issue at that point. I do like cinnamon in my tea, though. JPC13 Art says, everyone go to Conejo's channel now, please. What is he doing? While we wait for this to dry, let's see if I have any email notifications I should have gotten. I do have an email from Conejo saying my art is awful, just like my greasy hair. I love it both. That guy's hilarious. Yeah, I don't see any notifications. Let's see. We've got... Madison says, this is off topic, but I just dropped $220 on supplies at Blick. I don't know whether to be excited or disappointed. I just spent the past week and a half of my earnings. Oh my gosh, I so know what you mean. I so can relate to that. That's pretty much every shopping trip of mine ever. I get so excited about the thing that I got, but it's like, oh, that was painful. That was a lot of money. Moon Ram says, are the Inktense blocks chalkier than the Inktense pencils? Well, they're... more comes out fat. I mean, it's a block, so you can get more pigment off. But the thing is, I don't use pigment or the block straight onto the paper almost ever. I have one thing I used it on, and I'll show you that on a future project, but I can't tell you about it just yet. But anyway, normally I don't use the block straight on the paper. I mix the blocks with a paintbrush and make an ink mixture and apply that to the paper. So no, it isn't chalky at all. Topper Than Top says, if you could go any one place in the world, where would you go? Probably Hawaii. I've never been there. Gina says, everyone in this room is an art supply hoarder. I know, it kind of makes me feel better. We need to have meetings or something. So I'm going to throw this question out for you while I'm waiting for this to dry a bit. I am considering starting an art forum for us. We've got our art groups on Facebook, but I know a lot of people have been leaving Facebook because they're just sick of crap going on Facebook, or they're sick of politics and stuff. I've been considering doing an art forum, and I'd have to look more into this. I think I can have it built right off my website. But a forum, just because you can organize it better than the art groups, in that we could have a section for everyone sharing their studio assistants, a section where people are allowed to sell their artwork, a section where we talk about watercolor, talk about Inktense, talk about whatever. You can categorize it a bit better. So I don't know if you guys, if that's something that you would even remotely be interested in, let me know, because I don't want to go through the trouble if people are not so interested in forums anymore. I miss forums. They were just easier than to control and didn't have as much crap as Facebook. So, and again, because of Facebook filtering our content, we're not seeing everything that does get posted. So it's been something I've been considering. It'd be a lot of work, and I don't know if that's something I really want to do, but let me know if that's something that you guys are thinking might be a good idea or not. If there's like 10 of us, it wouldn't be worth doing. True Sighted, I think, is having a hard time getting things highlighted, so I'm not seeing the question, but he says, one last try here. How hard is the Mona Lisa thinner on most paper? Not often something goes wrong, but how forgiving does it seem to be, all things considered? It doesn't hurt the paper. I mean, there's no damage done to the paper. The only times I've seen there be like a negative thing with the Mona Lisa odorless, and I don't know if this would be negative, on the Fawn Stonehenge. I did an owl last year, and I used the Stonehenge sucks the paper. It's spongehenge is what an artist, Alan Woolett, actually calls it, spongehenge. Very descriptive term. It's very absorbent, and so it just sucked up the paint thinner, and it kind of just tinted the color. Which didn't matter because I put colored pencil over it anyway, so it didn't really matter. But you could kind of see the oil stains on the outside edge of the artwork. Again, didn't matter because that's not going to show once it's matted. So it didn't hurt anything, but somebody who wanted the fawn to show, you've got to be very careful to keep the edges clean, like what I did here, so you don't have oil stains all over. So just something to be aware of there. The other potential problem is that if you're using a really thin paper, it is wet. I mean, if you don't let it dry all the way, you could damage the paper. If you put the pencil on top of it, it could rip the paper that way. But other than that, there's not really anything. Oh, other thing is it's not going to erase. If I take an eraser on this, it's not going to do much. The pigment is too far into the paper now once it dissolves in the way that I'm using the odorless mineral spirits. So you're not going to lift a whole lot once you have used the OMS. So just something to be aware of there. Johanna wants to know if I recommend any of the Stonehenge pads for colored pencil. Not from the way that I work. No, they're too smooth. It's actually very similar to this, and then it's too much like vellum where I can't get the pigment the way I want it to when working with odorless mineral spirits. If you do not use odorless mineral spirits, spirits, then it may not bother you. You may like it. Most colored pencil artists I know are not a fan of the Stonehenge sold in pads because it is too smooth. But I do know some artists who are phenomenal who work exclusively on that and get amazing results. They don't work with odorless mineral spirits, so there's that. But I wouldn't recommend any of it for my techniques. So if that helps. I do like it for graphite though. Brandy says, have you ever tried acupuncture to relieve pain or stress? I've been considering trying it. No, I've considered it. I don't want to say I haven't considered it. I have. But at the time that I had considered it, I had no money. So it wasn't really an option for me. I don't have a whole lot of stress anymore other than, I need to get that video finished. I need to go edit a video. Or somebody said something mean to me on YouTube. So my life is not very stressful. I'm very, very lucky in that. So I don't really, it wouldn't work for me there. As far as pain goes, no, I've not. I might. If my back keeps up the way it's going, I may have to. I'm interested to see how that would work too. Funny Dude says, I think we need an intervention. Was it on the art supplies? Johanna said, do you recommend any pads? Because I definitely use thinner. You know, I want to say that, no, I don't. Try different things. They may work for your techniques. I don't like any of them, honestly. Every single paper that I use that I really like is sold in individual sheets. And that doesn't mean that you won't like some of those. You're not going to know unless you try. I personally don't have any that I'm in love with. But even this isn't terrible. It's not going to be my first choice, but it isn't the worst thing in the world. Sam's Black says, which graphite pencils do you recommend? My two favorites are the Faber-Castell 9000 series. Love, love, love that one. And the new Derwent, if you can get the new ones, the Derwent graphite pencils. Graphic, I think they call theirs. Those are really, really nice. Much, much smoother and kind of more silky than the original Derwent graphite pencils were. But you want to make sure you get the ones with the newer tin on them, or the new labeling. They've relaunched them and improved them, and I really do like them. So I'm just kind of brightening up some of this, creating a few more. And see how some of these I leave just the outline and I don't fill in. That orange is too orange right there. Go away. We will just burnish this white over it. Randy says they offer Canson Inktense in pads. Is that the paper that works with colored pencil and thinner? Though I know the individual sheets do. I've not tried the one in pads, but if it is the same thing, then it'd be worth giving a try, that's for sure. So I think we will go ahead and call this good for now. But you guys can see how you can layer this. And I could keep, honestly, I could sit here for another 2 hours smooth. Well, if it was Fabriano, I'd sit here for another 2 hours layering it. This, I think, isn't going to blend out with paint thinner much more. At this point, if I really wanted to get things smooth, I would have better results, I think, burnishing, where I'm just pushing a little bit harder. Or even just lightly layering my white over it will give me a smoother look than I will get with the colored pencil on it, because it is lifting off the paper too much. So if you guys are using odorless mineral spirits and you're having a hard time, or you feel like every layer your color is lifting off, it may be the paper. If you were using Bristol vellum, that is prone to that, and apparently this is too, which is very similar to Bristol vellum. It can be the paper giving you results that aren't exactly what you want. So definitely something to keep in mind. Gina said, sorry, I know that you've said a few times, what is the white brand that you are using? This is the Derwent Drawing Chinese White. I love this pencil. And I'm also using now, on today, it came in that set that I showed you earlier that they sent me of a bunch of samples, the Derwent Drawing in Olive Earth. I like this. I am going to have to get myself a full set of that. So, yeah, that is what that is. Have you ever used Faber-Castell Pitt pens? I would like to see you make art with them. I've done a few kind of markery type sketches with them, not in many, many years. So I don't know if that's something I'll do again. I have some here. Rain says, I'm blind as a bat and this gives me the urge to squint big time. I know what you mean. When you have something where everything's kind of out of focus, it really, yeah, it kind of messes with your paper or your eyes. See if I missed any questions really quick, and we will wrap this up for tonight. I think I got everything. I'm sorry if I missed anyone's questions. I try to get everybody as they come in order, but you know, they get missed sometimes when it scrolls up a lot. But thank you guys so much for watching. We're going to go ahead and call this done. And on your own project, you can layer like this as much as you want. But the macaw painting, or the macaw in colored pencil that you're going to see me do next week, that is going to have the airbrushed background, and this would be, if you don't use an airbrush, this would be the layering technique that I would do in place of that, if that's what you're going to be doing. So I think that is it for tonight. Again, thank you for joining. Make sure you check out our moderators channels. The links are in the video description for both Joseph, the Art of Joseph Fincham, and Valerie, who is Fire something. Valerie, Drawing with Fire. I knew there was fire involved. But make sure you check out their channels, and thank them so much for being here to help us and get rid of the trolls who say mean things to people and bad swear words. So, Yeah, I think we're done. Thanks again, and I will see you next week. It will probably be colored pencil as well, working on that macaw. Bye.